Live we are.
We are live. Hello, everybody. This is Nick Cuthbert, Director of OK Student. I'm back with Martin to do a live session for you. And today we're going to be talking about what university rankings mean. It's a tough one, Martin.
It is. Hey from me as well, and welcome to our weekly show. As Nick said, I'm Martin, and I am head of marketing and operations at OK Student. And yeah, interesting topic today. You definitely know a little bit more than I do, because I mean, so far I've been only on the kind of student end of the rankings, but now I've had obviously a need and really good opportunity to find out more about them as well.
Yes, so university rankings, even though I worked for a university for many years, they are one of those dark arts, a little bit like kind of Google algorithms, things like that, where people don't really know how they work, and they're always very interested in knowing more about how they're put together, what influences rankings.
Hey Aretha, how are you? Thanks for commenting on YouTube.
Hey Aretha, yeah, we are live, so please send us your questions, anything you want to know, we will try and answer, and hopefully this will try and be useful, because the kind of latest university rankings are starting to be published. So just this last week, we had the complete university guide, and also QS World Rankings have updated again this week for the year ahead. So people are starting to ask, what does it mean for the university they're looking at, the university they're at, if rankings go up and down, etc., etc.
So let's start with the kind of the most basic and maybe most important questions for students. So what do you think? What do the rankings mean for students, and especially taking into consideration like the latest changes as well?
Yeah, this is a really good starting point, because the university rankings are based on different types of metrics. So really you need to be looking at the right ranking for your own purposes, what you're interested in, why you're going to university. And also the rankings then are very different in some cases, and people often ask, why is a university highly ranked in this ranking but not in this one? So the main areas about rankings are research. Universities really are the kind of research and development department of our societies. They're in the pursuit of knowledge, of new knowledge, in all areas of society. And particularly in this time of COVID and biomedical research, you can really see that. And so some universities are heavily based on research work, research contracts and income, engagement with industry for research. So really trying to attract the very best minds, students and professors, people from academia. And so this is a kind of model for universities. So research-based rankings. The next part would be about teaching. Many universities now are about teaching, about improving students from high school to their first degree, an undergraduate degree, and teaching them in a certain discipline, or progressing from an undergraduate into a postgraduate field, more expertise, perhaps PhD in research, so a crossover there into the research field. So it depends on what stage you're at. If you are coming from high school, you need to think about what rankings reflect the experience of coming from high school into university. And that's a certain type of ranking. We can move on to talk about that. Or if you are an exceptional student, exceptional grades, if you are a progressing student into postgraduate fields, really you need to be looking at research excellence in the academic discipline you're interested in.
Definitely, and yeah, as you already mentioned as well, I think you like a student should like look a little bit ahead, and thinking of what they want out of the future, because as you mentioned, there is the universities, they actually are really different, but just based on what do you want.
Yeah, and they move. They are like a sporting league table. You know, some rankings don't move much. You know, they're very consistent year on year, and others move quite dramatically as universities develop their infrastructure and so on. So also there's big areas around the delay in the data. It usually takes a couple of years to come through. So it's not necessarily a very live picture of what you might experience. World factors can affect rankings, lots and lots of different things. So if you're choosing the highest ranking institution because you think that will reflect for employability reasons, that picture can change dramatically even in the time you're at university.
Yeah.
In the 20 years since I went to university, the university I went to was quite prestigious and has now dropped in the rankings. But it doesn't matter so much to me because I have work experience and developed a career around it.
Definitely. And I mean, we will get to the different university league tables quite soon. But yeah, I think something really important to note as well is that what actually, I think what I even did is like everyone opens up the league table in the beginning, and then they just check where the universities rank in the overall kind of ranking. But the just the subject matter they like a student wants to study, it actually sometimes they really do vary. So for example, some universities are really good business schools, and they may be in the middle of the ranking overall, but like for example, business school might be in top 20 or so. So I think it's really crucial to first of all kind of know the area that you want to study, because obviously, I mean, you might not know certainly like your kind of subject you want to study straight away, but yeah, just a kind of area, whether it's arts, whether it's business, and so on.
Absolutely. So I would always encourage students to look at subject ranking ahead of overall ranking. It means so much more to their own experience, and also gives an idea of how selective a university might be in that particular subject field. So yes, subject rankings are very important, more important than overall ranking, I would say.
And this is one of, maybe if not one of the first things that like our student advisors do as well, is they straight away try to find out what the student is interested in, and then look to the kind of subject-based rankings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of these things relate to your own academic ability, and you know, universities understand that with a high ranking and also maybe a high entry requirements, it positions that university as one of the best. When we know that that's not necessarily true, and also you know, it has an influence on student psychology to say that it must be the best, therefore I'll pay the high fees, and therefore I will definitely want to go there. So it makes them more selective than actively searching for students. So yeah.
Go ahead.
No, we covered this, I think, in entry requirements. A previous video, you can check it out on the channel. But yeah, the positioning of entry requirements to make a university more attractive to students.
Yeah, interesting. So let's say 17-year-old Martin from Estonia is looking to study in the UK, and then he actually doesn't really like know like what universities are good. He's maybe heard of like some main ones in the bigger cities of the UK, but he necessarily don't know where is like good business schools. So which kind of like rankings or league tables should Martin look out to?
All right, yes. So let's go on to this. So the actual league tables. So the oldest and the most well-known is the Times Higher league rankings. But they are heavily influenced on research metrics. Okay. The oldest, because I think the area of research was actually the only thing that universities could actively measure. It was very difficult to measure student experience and all the other metrics we have now around teaching, but they could measure citations and research income and output and how the government or industry felt about that. So research was something a bit more quantitative, and so it formed the first strong ranking system.
Which doesn't mean it's now irrelevant, does it? It's still really, yeah.
I mean, it's very prestigious, but it relates specifically to research. So the highest metric in that is, I think, 24-25% based on research metrics. So to 17-year-old Martin, I would say, whilst you're going to see this table and see, Oxford and Cambridge is the very best and so on, as we try and equate your academic ability with the choices you have in the UK, we can look at those rankings. But what we're saying is those Times Higher rankings usually relate to research metrics, which isn't really what you're interested in because you're a 17-year-old kid coming from high school.
Definitely. So which one should I be out looking for then? I've heard about The Guardian.
The Guardian, yes. So The Guardian has really, really come through in the last decade as a key university ranking system for student experience, particularly around teaching quality and outcomes of a curriculum. So this one is much more relevant for students coming from high school because it relates to the things you're interested in. And those are satisfaction. So that is, I think, the highest metric here. And that in the universities now, they have to complete a final year student survey, which then goes towards this metric of how satisfied students are having been through a degree at that institution. So that is a real reflection of how people feel. Again, you have to be careful. I think we're going to go on to this in a minute about how these metrics are formed. But it is a genuine cross-section of satisfaction from students and the highest metric. Other areas are kind of around value added. So what entry requirements you came in with and what qualification you went out with. So how much you improved in that journey. Yeah, so a value added to your life and your experience. Other things around expenditure on facilities, so the expenditure per student or the staff to student ratio. So how many teaching staff are involved in your curriculum. So the fees that you pay go back into your own experience. That's essentially what it's establishing. How good are the facilities for teaching? How good are they? And how many teachers? How much expertise is there for teaching purposes, not research purposes? Yeah. So the Guardian, a really, really good metric of these things. Okay. This is why you see a big difference between the Times Higher and the Guardian. And that universities some do very well in teaching and so appear higher in the Guardian and some higher in the Times because they're more about research contracts.
Interesting. And if I would like to know, like, how does my university rank amongst okay, let's say I have chosen UK already, so the Guardian and Times Higher would be the first ones definitely to look at. But if I'm interested, how does my university rank amongst other universities worldwide? Is there any good league tables for that?
Yeah, so all of these tables do offer world rankings and also UK specific rankings.
Okay.
Yeah. And obviously, if you've made the choice to study in the UK, really, that's only what's relevant. The world rankings are very, very interesting because you can have a look at, the kind of reputation of an institution on a global scale, but they're heavily influenced by, political situations. Some countries have emerged as very popular choices because they're pro-immigration, like Canada. Other institutions like Australia have come through to have a really, really good offering in terms of their universities and attracting international students. And then the kind of the US and the UK being the kind of age-old prestigious destinations to go. But things like Brexit have really affected the rankings. So you'll see at the moment, most of the UK universities have dropped this year in world rankings because the political agenda of Brexit, which has been rumbling on for 3 years, 4 years, it's affecting the ability for universities to sign good research contracts, to hire international staff or European staff. And so there's been a real hold or a freeze in the university sector because of Brexit. And so it's not that they're worse than they were, it's just the fact that they've not been able to progress as much as they should have on a world stage because of this indecision about how we are with European research contracts, European funding for research.
Definitely. That's always something like really important to pay attention to, is that like, I mean, I see that like in marketing myself as well, very often is like, you cannot look only at data, because you need to have a strong common sense, because it's quite obvious that like, let's say do the rankings, one university drops from 15th to 30th in the ranking. It's impossible that they literally go so much worse, or like in real life, because it's really important to bear in mind that it's just the numbers.
Absolutely. So ranking should be taken, you need to know more about the institution that is right for you, to make a considered choice about where you're going to be happy, where you're going to be able to succeed, which kind of teachers and tutors and professors will help improve you, but satisfy your interest in a certain field. And that is so much more important than ranking, because as you say, the rankings are transient, they move every year. And it's impossible to say that a university's got so much worse in such a short space of time, or better even.
Yeah. So in terms of like what those rankings are based on, like you already described a couple of them, like student satisfaction and so on and so on, and like expenditure per student. So I mean, I'm assuming, well, I kind of know as well, there is like many more metrics.
Yeah, many more metrics. Probably the one we haven't talked about so far is QS World Rankings, which is actually slightly different, or very different to the other rankings, and has become very, very popular, particularly with students looking at business schools. So QS World Rankings base 40% of their metrics, or their influence of the ranking, on reputation. So they survey businesses to find out what they think is the best universities.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So based on their hiring, based on their employment base of where their best employees come from. They kind of go out to industry and ask them what they think, and that informs the world league tables and the UK side of it as well.
Because that really does make sense, because I mean, what is the purpose of university? Like, I think it is actually, rather than just having fun and like having a good time, but more like getting employed after graduation, and I think it's a really interesting one, because I mean, how the employers think about certain graduates of certain university is actually intriguing.
Yeah, really, really intriguing. But what employers definitely would say, is that experience and demonstrating your knowledge and skills is so much more valuable than the university you have a degree from.
Definitely.
So this is one of the big misunderstandings by students, is they feel like they can go to a high-ranking university and it will be automatically, be aware of this.
Be aware.
It will automatically mean that they can get a good job. And it's just not the case. Unless you go to the very, very elite universities in the world, I would say, which is kind of outside of the top 5 in the UK, really, there's no guarantee that you can just walk into top jobs. It's a very, very competitive graduate jobs market, and experience and the ability to demonstrate your skills is so much more valuable than the name of the university you studied at. And I've been through this personally. I've interviewed many people for positions with hundreds of candidates, and some students, or graduates should I say, would say, I studied at this institution and I learned about this and this and this, and it's great. But then you'll see university applicants who've come from a lower ranked university who come in and say, I studied at this institution, but I know this and I've been practicing this, and I want to bring this to your business. I'm going to do this, and have so much more in terms of delivering or making the connection with what they've learned to what they're going to deliver for an employer.
Interesting. I think all of that really does make sense, and like it's good to see and hear that you have had like personal experience with that as well. I mean, we've discussed it in different Q&As before, that like, I mean, experience trumps most of the other areas any day. Of course, not in certain kind of fields or industries like medicine. You still do need experience, but I think it is a little bit different over there. But so okay, students, Friday Q&A, be aware section.
Oh, you throwing that to me? I
was throwing you to insert the one-liner so we could later clip it and get the nice clip.
I just ruined that.
No. But basically.
Well, we could talk in this section about the metrics of rankings and how they can be manipulated.
Okay, so
I know you're interested. I'm not going to explain or even know how it's done specifically, but I can give some examples about how these things work. So take, for example, student satisfaction. One thing straight away to be aware of would be that a popular subject like marketing, in a business school, could have a year group of hundreds, 200-300 students, whereas a niche science or a more of a niche subject could have a year group of 10, 15, 20. And so when you're talking about student satisfaction in that subject area, of course, it's going to be easier to have a high satisfaction for a small cohort than it would be for a big cohort. So in some ways, the more successful a university is, the more disadvantaged they are, because they have this huge cohort to keep happy. It's obviously part of their job. But
it's a numbers game again.
It's a numbers game, so you have to be aware of that. It's very difficult to keep hundreds of students satisfied compared to a small cohort. So that can be a big influence on those statistics.
So I'm just looking at our latest post about unusual degrees, where possibly there isn't that many people. And like what we found out is that there is a kind of course on surf science and technology. So people who want to study surfing, ethical hacking, which is interesting one as well, and contemporary circus. I think the hacking one is interesting because I think companies pay a lot these days when you find their kind of loopholes, and they kind of reward you. But anyway, these smaller courses can be, what do you say, like have different responses, obviously, then?
Yeah, a smaller cohort becomes a kind of study bubble, a topical area here. But there is a closer unity to that group and connection with the teacher. Obviously, whereas students on very popular subjects with large lectures and large cohorts can sometimes feel a bit disconnected from their tutors and so on, and that can reflect then in satisfaction, which can then reflect down into the league table.
Yeah.
So actually, it's harder.
And some more mathematical person could argue that the larger sample actually provides the more reliable answer or result.
Yeah, exactly. But even in the recording of those surveys, universities, obviously everybody is encouraged to fill out their survey, but universities are aware of when that survey is going to drop to their final year students. So, a little bit of kind of praise and love at the right time, yeah, and encouraging people to voice their grievances at a certain time, allows them to get a good positive response on the survey. Of course.
Now, the surveys are interesting. I just saw. I heard from one podcast how it's totally different subject now, but like how researchers, when they were like asking people about global warming,
mm-hmm.
And they literally like they changed the term in global warming to I just lost the word now, but literally the other term without warming in the term, and it literally changed. What is it, like environment changes in the environment or something like that, and it totally changed the results of the survey, which means
well, you just named ethical
climate change.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So climate change, for example, is so much feels like something might be changing, but it's not global warming.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, even you said ethical hacking before, which I'm sure is just hacking, but then giving you some ethical standards to do. Yeah. So I mean, exactly the way you position certain surveys and things like that. Obviously, you can try and shape the response. So if we go back to the Guardian ranking, the one that has satisfaction as the highest metric, you can understand how some universities would do better than others in that field.
So in overall, in addition to looking at rankings, what we suggest students to do is definitely get in touch with some real people from the actual universities, or find someone who can help you with like third-party advice.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do, is give advice to students about their options, impartial advice about where to study. And we do it in partnership with universities to make sure you're getting the right advice, that we're basically empowered professionally to do this. And the thing that OK Student does very well is actually we connect you to real students so that you get their real view of it. It's not someone else's view. It's not my view. It's someone who's going through it right now or has just been through it. So you're getting real insight into what you're actually going to get out of this, the experience, the quality, etc., etc. So, which is so hard to pick from a ranking. So please beware of that.
And one of our like ethos is like really empowering students as well, because we are built basically by students to students. And if I'm thinking to like our own team, like I think like so our advisors and marketing people and all of the kind of teammates, we have covered like maybe 1/6, 1/5 of the whole university list, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point. And we want to have somebody from every university so that we can get that kind of system going where somebody's there who can just welcome you, but also tell you what it's really like. So, I mean, if people want impartial advice, definitely get in touch with us. The other part I would say about, the form is here. Just fill in your details and an advisor will be in touch with you as soon as possible. It's usually very quick. the other part about rankings to keep in mind is when we talked about the Times Higher and research metrics, another metric is actually the entry requirements. So the higher your entry requirements, the higher you are in terms of selecting students. Some tables, like the Times, give you a very high score for that. Essentially, the harder to get into, the higher the ranked university. Kind of makes sense. But the thing about that is that you're going to have the very best grades, or at times it's much more than that. You need to have so much extra experience. You need to interview well, etc., to get offers at those very highly ranked universities. But also, what people don't realize is sometimes those cohorts are very, very small. So again, they can control the teaching quality, they can control the numbers, the satisfaction, and so on. So all of their metrics are getting higher and higher, but really they're not teaching that many students. And so to put that into perspective is that you could say a highly ranked research institution has less of those very high quality students than a modern university that's big teaching practices, hundreds of students. And by a numbers game, actually that big modern teaching university overall might get more high quality students than the selective research university. Does that make sense? So on entry, you might have more students who got A's here actually coming in than the very selective ones here that only have a few. So people are thinking this is the very best because it's selective. But what I'm saying is you might actually end up with, even you get a range of abilities, but you might end up with more high achieving students from those.
Which is really interesting, because let's say if this group gets all of those high achieving universities, it kind of really shapes the university to, I don't know, way much better university.
Exactly right. And that people shouldn't look down on those universities as poorer offerings, but just because they have a range of abilities, a broader entry policy.
So how should we conclude this kind of whole rankings topic?
Okay, so the conclusion is, what do rankings mean for you and your decision making? What values are you looking for here in your experience and the outcomes of your degree or your experience? So that's an important, you've got to start with that first. Then there are different rankings for different metrics, such as research or teaching, or what businesses think of an institution. So reputation. So we're going to say research, teaching, and reputation. And within those rankings, there are also subject rankings, which are much more important to you and your experience. So you need to really delve into this and look at it in detail. The caution we're saying is that some of the league tables, they fluctuate, and they fluctuate because of things that are out of the university's control, such as political situations and global situations. They also fluctuate because universities are smarter about how to code or categorize subject choices, how to hit certain metrics such as satisfaction, and those sorts of things. So that's why you see people climbing, because they've worked out how to do it very well. Similarly, expenditure. So what people are spending per student is a really big metric. So you see universities with big buildings, great facilities, which is fantastic for student experience, but also that expenditure helps them climb the tables because they're investing into the product, which is only a good thing. But what I'm saying is, in a marginal gains, one against the other, you could, if you spend a lot of money on a facility in 1 year, it could boost your league ranking. So yeah, but the main takeaway is, outside of the top 20 universities, let's say, or even the top 10 in the UK, there is very little difference. And some rankings, like the Times, actually give the same ranking to many universities in the middle section. So if you're not a high achiever, you're not getting the very best grades coming into your university experience, actually ranking doesn't really matter. They're kind of all here or there in the same categories. One does well one year, one does well another year. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. The biggest thing you need to look for is what is going to be the right experience for you, the right environment to be happy and to succeed.
Exactly, the environment as well, because city does matter, the location does matter, people do matter. So there is so many other variables than just a high-ranking university.
Exactly. So while it's a big influencer, we know it, they get a lot of press, but you need to think about how it applies to you and where you're at in this system.
Wonderful. I think a perfect place to wrap up for today.
Yeah, I think that was quite intense.
That was intense because it's quite like technical topic and really like narrow as well. But yeah, I mean, it is important topic because especially for the universities, this is like one of, and maybe the only like metrics or something that's important for the universities.
Exactly right. Exactly. And they you know, it's rightly so that they want to be validated for the work that they do. And we've talked about this before in videos as well, where, you know, British education is very, very good. There aren't really poor choices here. And so, you know, yes, they want to be seen against their peers as excellent, but, you know, there is a lot of choice of very, very good institutions. And check out, yeah, go on. You're going to go for it.
What about definitely check out our Medium, OK student, and yeah, we have a lot of guest writers from different universities, from different cities in the UK, who just describe their own thinking and knowledge on like what's good and what's bad, and yeah, I think our blog is obviously supporting our social media channels is one of the best places to kind of get the vibe of different cities and universities without actually being there. So definitely check out our like Medium page. We're always looking out for different guest writers to share their experience. This can be current students, alumni, and even students who are looking out to go to university now, and maybe they just want to describe their experience of selecting a university. So whoever wants get in touch, we still have going on Worldwide 100 Challenge, where we're trying to gather 100 different nationalities in our community. If I am correct, then we have 38 nationalities at the moment represented. So you can find out who they are on our Medium blog, on Instagram, Twitter, basically everywhere. And yeah, I mean, we will have coming out soon a cities campaign where we will be kind of showing everyone the 10 best student cities in the UK. So look out for that. We will have a representative for each city, and they will give their best tips about, I don't know, the best night out, the kind of coolest attraction that people or students usually don't know about. So a lot of insights coming from that campaign as well.
Brilliant. I mean, so much information there. And yeah, if you want to be involved in OK Student, if you want to write for us, if you want to represent your institution, if you want to tell us about your experience, please do, because it only adds value, it only helps other people as well. So it's a really, really good thing to do, a good way to get experience. So just
and if you are 17, 18-year-old Martin in Estonia or in Lithuania or anywhere, definitely get in touch with us. We have a form, okstudent.co.uk/form. And yeah, one of our student advisors will get in touch with you with massive knowledge of like all of our partner and non-partner universities across the UK. They will listen to you. They will find you the best city, the best university, and the best course.
Simple as that.
As simple as that.
Simple.
Have a good end of your Friday, everyone. Well, not end. It's still kind of midday in here in the UK. And yeah, have a wonderful have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.